The Sud de France is an organization that promotes the wine, the food, and the culture of southern France, specifically the Languedoc Roussillon. I am in love with the wines from Languedoc Roussillon, so they sent me out there for 5 days with a video camera. I visited 10 winemakers and got to see just how magical this place is. The following videos are my experience of the wines that we should be seeing more and more on the American market. Please enjoy. It's day 2 and we're at Costieres De Nimes, and we are at an amazing winery that has very ancient Carignan vines. Kreydenwiess. This is a family that's from Alsace, and they are here in Languedoc Roussillon making amazing wine, which we will be tasting.
I'm Emmanuelle Kreydenweiss, Mark's wife. We are a family winemaker, and I grow myself my vineyard. What else?
No, that's great. That's
enough.
Wonderful. That's enough. That's enough. Our first stop on the second day was Kreydenwiess. This is a family that was originally from Alsace, making wine, that moved to the Languedoc Roussillon to realize a dream of making wines they've always wanted to make, red wines they've always wanted to make. And this is an area called Costieres De Nimes, which is very close to the Rhone River. It's actually in the Rhone Valley, but because of the appellation status, it is considered Languedoc-Roussillon. This family is great. They actually have 100-year-old Carignan vines, which we will see in a little bit. What Emmanuelle is showing me here are their cement fermentation tanks. It gets very warm in Languedoc, in this part of the Languedoc. And when they're harvesting the grapes, they harvest very early in the morning, starting at 7 a.m. so they can keep the grapes cool. And to ensure that they stay cool, they put them in these cement fermentation tanks that are lined with tubing that has cold water running through them, cooling the grapes down. Their operation here is fairly small. You can see how small this little garage is. Their vineyards are just outside. And look at those. Those are Alsatian wine barrels that they brought from, well, Alsace. There are so many wonderful things happening in this small little facility. We're going to start tasting wine soon, and we're going to start talking about the terroir and the soil, and then we're going to head on out to the vineyards to take a look at the 100-year Carignan.
So here we grow mainly Carignan, Mourvèdre, Syrah, Grenache. We bought the winery in 1999, as I said.
They bought the winery in 1999, and when they did so, there was a lot of Carignan in the vineyards. They went ahead and ripped some of those Carignan up. There's some laws that won't allow a certain amount of Carignan into the blends, but they held the 100-year-old Carignan. This varietal is very prominent in the area, especially because of the phylloxera epidemic in the late 1800s. It was one of the only Vitis vinifera vines that was not as sensitive to the phylloxera louse.
Very interesting grapes, even here, because it's allowed in the appellation.
Sure, of course.
And we planted some Marcelin, which is something we didn't know before.
This is what I love about wine. You learn something new every day for the rest of your life.
Oh, interesting. What was it called?
Marcelin.
Marcelin is a grape that is a cross between Cabernet Sauvignon and Grenache. It was developed in the 1960s specifically for the Languedoc Roussillon, and it was given its Vin du Pays status in 1990.
Very small berries, by the way. Sure. But it's quite an aerated grape, so...
Okay. In the 1990s, Mark Kreydenwiess had a dream. He wanted to come down to an area where he could make red wine. In his area in Alsace, the only red wine that was allowed was Pinot Noir. And as amazing as Pinot Noir is, he wanted to experiment with other vines. So they found this area in Costieres De Nimes.
We were looking around, and we were a bit further down in nearby Montpellier.
And when they came upon the area in which they now live and stay and make amazing wine, Mark saw the land, saw the house, saw the vineyards, and he had a premonition. It was a small property, which is what they wanted. They just wanted a small area where they could make wines they love, and this is the result.
We should be able to make great wine here because the soils And maybe we should show you some.
This is great. We were talking about the soil of the area. As we've been talking about a lot in the Languedoc Roussillon, red clay, red soils, a lot of iron in the soils down here. It's very good for the vines. And so we decided to go over and taste some of the wines. And she actually had some of these gravel pudding stones that are in the vineyard. So we got to taste the wine and take a look at what these stones look like.
They call them pudding stone.
Exactly, I wanted to say that. Yeah. You have the same kind of soil in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. So my husband said, if Châteauneuf-du-Pape is so famous, we should be able here to make a Châteauneuf-du-Pape appellation
right.
style, yes.
The wonderful thing about Kreydenwiess is here we have a renowned winemaker in Alsace coming to Languedoc just to make wines for the pure passion of it.
We should make one red wine, and that's it.
And all they wanted to do in the beginning was just to make one good red wine, one good blend. And then over the years, they realized that in 1 year, one vineyard did so well that they thought, hey, why don't we just do a single vineyard wine? And that kind of progressed, and now they have 5 or 6 wines, some single vineyard, some blends, and the blends change from year to year. This is wonderful. This is a winery realizing itself, which is so cool because they came from somewhere else. The generations of their family is from another part of Europe, another part of France. And here they are creating a legacy through about a decade now. Then it was time to taste these wines. I was really excited to start tasting after hearing about all the passion they put into making these wines, and we also get to hang out with these pudding stones before we go into the vineyard and see these 100-year-old Carignan vines.
J'ai des cailloux différents.
These are the stones she's talking about in the vineyards. Very similar to Châteauneuf-du-Pape. It's very cool. It's a very cold stone right now. If it was out in the sun all day during growing season, it would warm up, and then at night it would emanate some heat and keep the Syrah kind of warm, because that's what Syrah likes.
My wine geek brain was going a little bit crazy. This is sort of heaven for me. We hadn't even gotten into the vineyard yet, and I was already getting a sense of what these wines were going to be like.
This is great. So these are the stones you're talking about, and this is the soil right here. It's the red. It's the iron.
You see the
and
iron,
the red
yes.
clay.
We've been working in biodynamic since we.
Okay, great. That's awesome.
That's the main thing probably to talk about.
Here we are, the second day, and still we are talking about biodynamic practices. This is great. I got another sense of how this agriculture is done. They take the quartz, ground it into a powder called silex, and they blend it with compost or cow manure. They put it into a horn, bury it into the ground, and let it ferment over a certain period of time. At a certain moon cycle, they unearth the horn, and that mixture that they had in there in the beginning is this wonderfully nutrient compost. And they spread that over the vineyard with a solution of water. One thing I found that as we traveled this region, almost every winemaker we talk to is practicing some sort of sustainable agriculture, organic, biodynamic, what have you. Are they certified all the time? Maybe not. But what's important is they are doing it. The sustainable agriculture, certified or not, is very good for the land, and in the end was very good for us when we're drinking the wine. It's time to taste the wines.
So this is our main cuvée, really.
We began to taste through all Marc Kreydenwiess wines, and what was interesting was we were tasting wines from multiple vintages. She was really giving us a sense of how from year to year the blends change based on how the vintage is doing. This is pretty exciting stuff.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Geographic.
Very smooth, soft fruit, good, like the acidity is so well balanced.
You need the acid.
Acidity. No matter where we were in Languedoc Roussillon, acidity is key. These are all medium to full-bodied red wines, and even if they're full-bodied, they still are beautiful and balanced because of that acidity. It's all over the place. Carignan has amazing acidity, and when it's blended with other varietals, it really allows these wines to express themselves.
We have a vineyard, this vineyard in front of the house of the cellar. It's 100 years old, Carignan.
And here we are. This is history right here, tasting 100-year-old Carignan vines.
100-year-old Carignan vines. Can you see that? Look how dark that is still. The yield is fairly low, I would imagine.
Fairly low does not even describe it. Emmanuelle told me that sometimes those Carignan vines, the 100-year-old vines, only produce one berry per vine. That's incredible.
Some here you have
beautiful,
just one.
And of course, with such a low yield, it makes sense they only make a little over 100 bottles per vintage.
Pre-phylloxera vines. Beautiful.
Again, wine geek alert, this is beautiful. They planted some Pinot Gris that they brought from Alsace, and they blended it with some of the indigenous varietals of the area. This is an experimental wine.
Wow, this is great. So, Pinot Gris, Riesling,
Muscat, Viognier, Grenache probably. Grenache Blanc.
The experimental wine.
The experiment of an Alsatian
winemaker. Yeah. It's dry, it's clean, it has great acidity, it's musky, it has like small notes of apricot and tropical fruits, and it's just so clean on the palate. What a grip. Great acidity. But of course you use biodynamic practices with your white grapes as well as your red grapes, so it would make sense with the finesse that you get from the red wines. You absolutely get it in this wine. It's awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are walking outside. We are about to see vineyards that have 100-year Carignan. Seriously, 100-year Carignan vines. I'm just in love with the idea of old vines. As a vine gets older, it produces less fruit, there's more concentration of flavor, there's more complexity, and these vines have been sitting here for 100 years. They just sat waiting, and now the Kreydenwiess family are the new caretakers of these beautiful old vines.
They left 4, maybe 5. And this is the Gobelet prune.
It is my humble opinion that a great winemaker talks first about the vineyards. And here we have an example of this. Emmanuelle is talking passionately about how they train their vines, and they talk about how they take care of their soil. These are biodynamic practices. They are in love with these vines. They do everything they can to make sure that they're healthy and that they don't get hurt. And here we have younger Syrah vines, but can you hear that wind? There are 30 wind currents in Languedoc Roussillon alone. And here we go. This is the soil. There are those stones we were looking at in the winery. They soak up the heat and emanate it at night, warming the grapes. Here we are, seeing it firsthand, how these wonderful wines are made. And just before we left, Marc Kreydenwiess, Emmanuelle's husband, the winemaker from Alsace, showed up and surprised us with a barrel tasting of the 2010 Perrier.
C'est Perrier, mais c'est pour l'instant c'est que du Mourvèdre, du Grenache.
Oh, right out of the barrel, 2010 right here, the preview.
Okay. This is an example of how their wines change from year to year. When we first started tasting their line a little bit ago, the Perrier was a Carignan-based blend. But this one has no Carignan in it whatsoever. Thank you, Emmanuelle and Marc Kreydenwiess, for this wonderful tour, the wonderful wine, and thank you for showing us that the legacy of Languedoc Roussillon continues. We find passion in every wine region throughout the world. But the intense passion of the winemakers of the Languedoc Roussillon are just now being realized on the American market. And I want to get everyone excited about these wines. They're so well balanced. I call them crowd pleasers. No matter who you give this wine to, they will enjoy it. We're watching a wine region finally being realized after hundreds of years of passionate winemaking. And soon we were off to our next visit. It was an incredible experience to see that a renowned winemaker from Alsace decided to come to a place like Languedoc Roussillon to continue his passion.